New Year's Eve has always been my favorite holiday. Something about closing one chapter and opening the next. It gives you a chance to take stock. Look back. Look forward. And for the last 25 years, I'd done that with Monica by my side. We hosted the party this year like we usually do. It had become a bit of a tradition. String lights, playlists we'd argue about for weeks beforehand, champagne flutes we only ever used once a year, and a ridiculous number of appetizers. It was comfortable, predictable, safe, or at least it used to be. That night, everything felt a little off. It wasn't anything obvious, just small things. The way Monica kept checking her phone when she thought I wasn't looking. How she disappeared upstairs twice in the first hour to change shoes and came back with the same pair on. The way she seemed glued to one of her coworkers, Nathan, as if he were the only person in the room worth talking to. I told myself I was imagining things, that I was being paranoid, that the tension I felt in my chest was just stress from hosting. Then came the moment. It was a little after 11:30. Everyone had refilled their glasses, gathering around the fireplace like we always did for the countdown. Someone made a toast. Something cheesy about how we should all try new things in the new year. And that's when Monica chimed in, with her glass raised and that signature, overly confident smirk on her face. She said, "You know what we should try? Partner swapping. Come on, just for fun. Fresh start, right?" Just like that, out loud, in front of everyone. At first, people froze. Then a few nervous chuckles broke the silence. Someone said, "Oh, Monica," in that teasing tone people use when they're not sure if you're joking or serious. A few more people laughed. Not because it was funny, but because they didn't know what else to do. But I didn't laugh, because I knew it wasn't a joke. Maybe it started out that way in her head. Something she'd seen in a show, maybe, or overheard at the salon. But the second it came out of her mouth, I saw the look in her eyes. Calculated. Testing. She wasn't throwing that idea out there for shock value. She was testing me. Testing the room. Seeing if the idea would land. And more importantly, she was seeing if I would object. I didn't explode. I didn't say a word. I just set my glass down on the mantel and walked into the kitchen, pretending to grab more ice. I needed air. I needed to think. 25 years of marriage, and with one sentence, she cracked something open that I didn't know how to close. A few minutes later, Monica followed me in. She didn't even check to see if anyone was watching. She came right up to me with that same smirk, only now it was twisted into something colder. Sharper. "What's your problem?" she asked, like I was the one who had just derailed the evening. "It was a joke, Mark. Jesus, lighten up. You really know how to K*LL a vibe." I didn't say anything at first. I just stared at her. "Seriously," I said finally. "That's your defense? That it was a joke?" She rolled her eyes. "Yes, a joke. You remember what that is, don't you? God. Maybe we should shake things up if you're going to keep acting like some moody old man every time someone has fun." There it was. Not just the comment itself, but the turn. She was deflecting, doubling down, making me the problem. I'd seen it before, not from her but from other people. Coworkers who got caught doing something shady and turned it around on whoever called them out. The gaslighting. The "you're being sensitive." The "don't make a scene." She looked at me like I was the one embarrassing her, like I had crossed the line by reacting at all. "You know what?" I said, stepping back from her. "Forget it." "Great," she snapped, grabbing a bottle of Prosecco off the counter. "Maybe go back in there and practice your fake smile. People are starting to notice your little sulk fest." That was the moment it all shifted. Not when she said the thing. Not even when she tried to downplay it. It was when she blamed me for reacting. It would have been easier if she just said, "Yeah, that was out of line." Or even, "I'm sorry, I don't know why I said that." But instead, she treated my shock like it was the real offense. That's when the pieces started clicking into place. The recent changes I'd chalked up to stress or midlife burnout. The last few months, Monica had been different. Not in a "we're growing apart" way, I mean different. She was staying later at work, canceling plans, always claiming to be tired or overwhelmed. But on the weekends, She suddenly had energy for new hobbies she never wanted to share with me. Art shows with coworkers I'd never met. Networking events with clients that conveniently didn't allow spouses. And her phone, always face down, always password locked, even though she used to be the type to hand it to me mid-conversation. I'd noticed. Of course I had. But I didn't say anything. You don't want to be that guy, the suspicious husband, the one who reads too much into things. I didn't want to be paranoid. But after that night, I realized I hadn't been paranoid at all. I'd been naive. Or worse, I'd been in denial. She had already made her choice. That comment at the party wasn't the beginning. It was the result, the mask slipping for a second too long. And her reaction, the way she pivoted so fast from humor to hostility, told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't guilt. It was strategy. If she could make me look like the stiff, the boring husband who couldn't take a joke, then whatever she did or had already done would seem like a reaction, a rebellion, a response to my uptightness. Not a betrayal. Not a premeditated decision. That's what really got to me. She'd already crossed a line. But now she was rewriting the story to make it look like I had pushed her there. I walked back into the living room with a forced smile. Not because I wanted to keep up appearances, but because I needed to watch. I needed to see how deep it went. She followed close behind me, laughing loudly, making eye contact with guests, clinking glasses as if nothing had happened. She had a talent for performance, I'll give her that. She could make you feel like you were overreacting while she slowly turned the knife. And I saw it clearly for the first time in years. Monica wasn't lost. She wasn't confused or in crisis. She was in control, calculated. And the rest of us? We were just pieces on the board. I stayed quiet the rest of the night. I watched, I listened, and I kept my thoughts to myself. Because now I knew, whatever was going on, it was bigger than a bad joke. It was the tip of something deeper, something darker, and I wasn't about to be cast as the villain in a story I hadn't even realized I was in. After the party, I didn't confront her. I didn't bring it up the next morning. We woke up in the same bed, but it felt like I was lying next to a stranger. She was already scrolling through her phone before I opened my eyes, pretending nothing had happened. She leaned over, kissed my cheek, and mumbled, "Happy New Year." I stared at the ceiling, silent. The words tasted fake, plastic, like something said out of obligation, not affection. She got out of bed, humming to herself as she padded toward the shower, still performing the role, still smiling like nothing was broken. But something had cracked inside me the night before, and once that crack was there, everything else started shifting. Over the next few days, I found myself drifting into my own head more often, replaying old conversations, small moments I had brushed off at the time. The kind of things you file away as odd, but forget because they don't make sense on their own. But now, all those scraps of suspicion started to click into a horrifying pattern. First, there was the wardrobe change. Back in September, Monica started dressing differently. I remember because she asked me, very casually, what I thought of her new jeans. "Too young for me?" she asked, spinning in front of the mirror. They were tighter than anything she'd ever worn before. I remember thinking she looked amazing, but something about it felt off. Not the outfit, but the way she needed approval for it. The way she needed to announce it. After that, the changes kept coming. Shorter skirts, a darker shade of lipstick, new perfume. At first, I figured it was a confidence thing, maybe a post-40s glow-up. I even joked about it, told her she looked like she was aging in reverse. She laughed, and I believed that laugh was real. Now I wonder who those outfits were really for, because they sure weren't for me. Then there were the late nights. Around October, Monica's work schedule started to shift. "Just this week," she said at first. "Big deadline." Then it became 2 nights a week. Then 3. Then whole weekends. She claimed her office was understaffed and that she had to pick up the slack. I didn't question it. Not because I trusted her blindly, but because she was always so calm when she said it. So confident. And I didn't want to be the guy who accused his wife of cheating just because she was working late. I kept telling myself she was just busy, that she'd come around when things settled. But they never settled. She used to text me throughout the day, small things. Lunch pictures, memes, articles she knew I'd like. Those stopped. Gradually at first. Then completely. When I brought it up once, half joking, she said, "Sorry, I'm just swamped lately. We're all drowning." But she was never too swamped to text her friends. Or to post cryptic little Instagram stories with generic captions like, "Grind mode laptop computer sparkles," or "Resetting boundaries." None of them had me in them. None of them referenced us. In November, I found out she canceled a trip we had planned without even telling me. We were supposed to spend a weekend up in Vermont. A quiet cabin getaway we'd both agreed on months earlier. I blocked the dates off in my calendar. Bought a new coat for it. Even made a reservation at that little Italian place we liked on the way. 2 days before we were set to leave, she reminded me that she had a leadership summit that weekend. "What summit?" I asked. "You knew about it?" she said, not even looking up from her phone. "It's been on my calendar forever." Except I didn't know. She never mentioned it. I checked her shared calendar later. It hadn't been there until recently. She'd added it a week earlier. I let it go. Told myself I was misremembering. Gaslit myself into believing maybe I had missed something. Because if I accepted the alternative that she lied, I'd have to admit we were in trouble. And I wasn't ready for that. Not then. But now, in the days after New Year's, it was like my brain had flipped a switch. And all these inconsistencies I'd ignored were flooding back in vivid detail. Even her interests had changed. Monica used to hate wine tastings. Called them pretentious sniffing parties. Now she loved them. She started going to them once a month with her networking group. She started using phrases like palate cleanser and oak forward in sentences like she was auditioning for a sommelier position. When I asked if I could tag along sometime, she laughed and said, "Trust me, babe, you'd be bored out of your mind." A few months earlier, she invited me everywhere. Now, everything was "you wouldn't enjoy it," or "it's just for work," or "I'll be late, don't wait up." I also remembered how she stopped sharing details. She used to talk about her day, who annoyed her at work, the weird guy who stocked the vending machine, even the boring parts. But lately, every time I asked, she gave vague answers. Same old. Busy. Nothing worth repeating. And when she did talk about people, one name kept coming up. Nathan. At first, it was in passing. Nathan said the proposal's due by Friday. Then it was Nathan and I are pitching together next quarter. Then it became Nathan thinks I should go for the director role. Always Nathan. Always casual. I'd asked once if he was single. She rolled her eyes and said, "No, he's married. His wife's a yoga teacher or something." But the more she mentioned him, the less convinced I was that he was just a colleague. The tone changed. The casual mentions became more frequent, more familiar. Too familiar. Then there was her phone. Once upon a time, she'd leave it on the kitchen counter while she cooked. Now it was always with her. Always screen down. Notifications silenced. If I ever picked it up to hand it to her, she'd rush over like I was disarming a bomb. She had started using an app one didn't recognize. A purple icon she quickly shoved into a folder. When I asked what it was, she said, "Just a calendar thing for work." But it wasn't a calendar. And I knew it. I started checking timestamps on photos she posted, cross-referencing them with what she told me. There were discrepancies. Places she said she wasn't at. Times she said she was in meetings. Shadows and backgrounds that didn't match her story. I wasn't imagining things. I wasn't overthinking. She was lying. Not once. Not by accident. This was a pattern. This was a constructed narrative carefully built over months. And I had played my part perfectly. The trusting, stable husband who didn't ask too many questions. The reliable one who made dinner on Thursdays and picked up the dry cleaning and paid the bills on time. The background character in a drama I didn't know was being filmed. Looking back, the moment that really guts me, the memory that stings most, is from December 23rd, 2 days before Christmas. I had come home early, hoping to surprise her. I picked up her favorite pastries, the kind from the bakery across town that only bakes on weekends. I let myself in, expecting to find her working in the study or curled up on the couch with Netflix. Instead, the house was empty, totally dark. No note, no text. I called her. No answer. She called back 3 hours later, said she got pulled into a last-minute project with Nathan and lost track of time. Apologized with a voice that sounded half asleep. I believed her. I even warmed up her pastry when she got home, put on her favorite Christmas movie, and rubbed her feet while she sat there staring at her phone. Now I wonder where she really was that night. And with who? After the New Year's party, and after the flood of memories I could no longer ignore, I knew I needed more than gut feelings. I needed confirmation. Not for the sake of confrontation, I wasn't planning some dramatic showdown, but for clarity. For sanity. There's a moment in every unraveling relationship where suspicion becomes its own kind of torture. You start second-guessing reality. Was she always this secretive? Was I always this naive? You bounce between trusting your instincts and gaslighting yourself. I was tired of it. I wanted the truth, the ugly, unfiltered version. Came in a way I didn't expect. One Thursday morning, Monica left early for work. Earlier than usual. Said she had a breakfast meeting. She kissed my cheek absently, still on her phone, and left wearing a blazer I hadn't seen before. I went upstairs to make the bed. A small act of control in a house that no longer felt like mine, and noticed she'd left her laptop open on the dresser. Now here's the thing. I wasn't snooping. Not at first. But the screen was awake, still logged into her email. Not her work account, but her personal one. And there, bolded at the top, was a subject line that made my stomach knot. Booking confirmation, Wyndham Gardens Hotel, December 27th to 28th. Wyndham Gardens was not the kind of place you stayed for work. It wasn't flashy, but it was discreet. Just off the highway, popular for affairs and people passing through town unnoticed. I clicked it. 2 nights. 1 room. Paid in full with our joint account. My throat went dry. I checked the calendar. December 27th. That was the same weekend she told me she had a strategy retreat out of state. I remember I even helped her pack. She made a show of asking me if she should bring heels or flats. I told her to go with heels, joking that strategy always sounded better in heels. She'd smiled, kissed me, and said, "Good point, babe." The bile rose in my throat. I checked the attachments. There was a reservation ID, billing details, and in the forwarded thread, a follow-up email from a name I recognized instantly. Nathan Chambers. Subject, "Can't wait." 2 more days, smiling face with horns. The emoji hit me like a slap. Immature, smug, int asterisk mate. There was no professional tone here. No work-related phrasing. Just anticipation. And beneath that, Monica's reply, "Me too. Rooms booked. Same place as last time. Let's not leave the bed this time," winking face. I sat down slowly, like the air had been *ked out of the room. My hands were shaking. Same place as last time. So this wasn't their first time. This wasn't even new. This was just the first time I had proof. I went cold. It wasn't just the messages or the hotel. It was the detail, the comfort in the way they spoke to each other. The shorthand of 2 people with history. I scrolled back through her inbox, searching her name next to his. They were everywhere. Emails about meetings that never existed. Gmail calendar invites that said workout or team sync. Always in the evenings. Always marked as private. Attachments with photos. Nothing graphic, thankfully, but personal. One was of the 2 of them in front of some glass art exhibit. She told me she went alone that day, needed some solo time to recharge. I recognized her scarf in the photo. I'd bought it for her on our 20th anniversary trip to Seattle. She wore it like a badge that day, posing with her new man while I was home, defrosting leftovers and wondering if I should start planning our summer vacation. Then the worst part. One folder, hidden deep in her drive, was labeled simply, "Consulting Decks." Inside, there were files with names like Q4 Strategy and Marketing Audit, but they were all dummy files. Empty PowerPoints. But one was different. A zip file titled Backups. Inside, pictures. Not many, maybe a dozen. Some were selfies. Some were mirror *TS. Some were hotel photos, her in a towel, her legs over someone's lap, only his watch visible. I recognized that watch. Nathan wore it to our barbecue last spring. I shook his hand that day. He told me he liked our patio setup. My vision tunneled. Everything slowed down. I was staring at hard evidence of my wife, my partner of 25 years, draped across another man in a hotel bed, and I was supposed to. What? Breathe? I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just sat there, frozen, while the clock ticked toward noon and my whole concept of reality quietly imploded. I printed everything. I'm not sure why. Maybe because I still didn't trust that I wasn't hallucinating. I needed it in my hand. I needed it on paper, in black and white, so I couldn't pretend it was all in my head. Then I did something I didn't think I'd do. I checked our finances. Monica always handled the day-to-day, groceries, utilities, the Amazon account. I took care of the bigger stuff, mortgage, insurance, investments. That's how we divided the load. I never questioned it. But now I was looking closer, and what I found stunned me. Small transfers, just a few hundred here, a few hundred there, consistently withdrawn from our joint checking account every other Friday. Transferred into a separate savings account I had no idea existed. It was under her name only. Over the last 6 months, the total added up to almost $9,000. $9,000. Quietly rerouted. Disguised. That wasn't accidental. That wasn't spur-of-the-moment cheating. That was preparation. That was Monica building a plan. She was stacking cash, building a parachute. Not because she was scared of me, but because she had every intention of exiting. And I was supposed to be the fool footing the bill. I found legal documents too. A draft file titled Separation_Proposal. Docs, saved last month. She had written out bullet points. Propose amicable split. Frame it as wanting different futures, not blame. Mention feeling emotionally unsupported. Offer generous visitation structure. Look cooperative. Use therapist suggested clarity as rationale. Each point felt like a dagger. She had crafted a script, a performance. I was never going to be told the truth. I was going to be managed. I sat with that reality for hours. By the time Monica came home that night, I had filed the laptop away, cleaned the kitchen, and made dinner. Salmon, her favorite. I didn't say a word. She asked how my day was. I told her it was quiet. And it was. Because that was the day the marriage died. And she didn't even notice. After I saw the emails, the hotel booking, the private savings account, after the weight of what she'd done settled over me like a fog, I didn't confront Monica. I didn't scream. I didn't throw her laptop or demand an explanation. I did what I think a lot of people don't expect. I went quiet. Not passive. Not weak. But still, there's a specific kind of silence that only comes after the worst has already happened. You're not fighting to prevent the fall anymore. You're standing in the wreckage, deciding which pieces are worth saving, and which ones you leave buried in the ash. And that's where I was. I started preparing. Not for revenge. Not even for confrontation. But for freedom. For the cleanest exit I could possibly make. One that wouldn't give her a single crack to squeeze through later and rewrite the narrative. I began with the finances. I stayed up late, night after night, combing through every bank statement, every credit card bill, every digital receipt from the last 18 months. I built a spreadsheet, tabs for transfers, travel, subscriptions, cash withdrawals, everything. I wanted a full map of what had been happening behind my back. It was worse than I thought. She had started funneling money into that separate account about 7 months ago. At first, it looked like small, irregular savings. But I found patterns. Certain charges made on her work trips didn't show up on her expense reports. Some hotels billed our joint credit card, then had partial refunds days later to another account. I dug deeper. There were gift receipts, boutique shopping bags I never saw, one charge for a store that sold men's watches. I remembered a time she mentioned getting something for a vendor. I nodded, assuming it was corporate gifting. Turns out it was Nathan's birthday. Another charge stood out, a deposit to a property management company. Not ours. Not one I recognized. A background check later revealed the name was tied to a short-term lease across town. A fully furnished one-bedroom apartment. I froze staring at that file. The dates aligned almost perfectly with her strategic retreats. She hadn't just been booking hotels. She'd secured a place of her own, a hideout, or maybe a landing pad for after she blew everything up. And me? I was still showing up with flowers when she had a bad day. The betrayal didn't feel loud anymore. It felt clinical, intentional. That's what kept me up at night. This wasn't a midlife mistake. It was a carefully executed transition plan, and I was never supposed to find out. I was supposed to be the oblivious, faithful husband who kept funding her lifestyle while she lined up her next one. I decided I wouldn't give her the satisfaction, so I made a plan of my own. I met with a lawyer, a woman named Marcia, sharp as hell, recommended by a friend who'd gone through a brutal divorce last year. I showed her everything, the spreadsheet, the emails, the hotel records, the apartment lease. She barely blinked. "You've done most of the work already," she said, flipping through the folders. "This is going to be easier than you think." She explained that in our state, adultery didn't just mean personal fallout, it had legal weight, especially when it came to financial misconduct. "She's siphoning marital funds," Marcia said. "If she thinks she's going to coast into this clean, she's in for a rude awakening." I asked her not to contact Monica yet. "Not until I say so," I said. She nodded. "You tell me when. Until then, we prepare." And that's exactly what I did. I changed all my passwords, not just the big ones, but everything. Email, streaming services, online storage, even the passcode on my phone. I locked down my personal credit cards and removed her as an authorized user from anything that was in my name alone. She didn't notice. Or if she did, she said nothing. I created a new bank account and started moving small amounts into it. Not enough to be obvious, but enough to build a buffer. I scheduled a separate mailbox at a UPS store across town and had all future financial and legal documents rerouted there. She never asked why the Amazon Prime stopped working. She just used her own. I also started logging every conversation we had. Not recording, just taking notes. Dates, times, summaries. I wanted a record in case things went sideways. And I backed up everything. Photos, texts, emails, her calendar, the fake meetings, the shared documents that included hotel reservations hidden in Google Drive. Everything went into a secure hard drive, which I stored at my office, in a locked drawer she couldn't access. I thought it might make me feel vindicated. Didn't. I wasn't angry anymore. I was tired, but not defeated, focused. Because the more I uncovered, the more obvious it became that Monica didn't just betray me. She tried to outmaneuver me. She thought I'd go along with her script, that I'd accept her pre-written breakup lines and let her walk away on her terms. No mess, no consequence, no loss. Just a quiet exit where I swallowed the pain and she walked into her next chapter smiling. But that wasn't going to happen. I wasn't going to be the shell of a man who signed whatever papers she put in front of me and handed over half of everything while she cried crocodile tears about how we grew apart. No, she didn't get to rewrite history. She chose deceit. And now she'd have to face it. Not in some fiery explosion, but in the slow, legal, measured reality of consequence. That was my power now. The truth carefully documented and deployed with precision. I didn't tell anyone yet. Not even my sister, who I trusted more than anyone. Not my coworkers. Not my friends. I kept everything bottled up, tucked behind my usual routine. Because if there's one thing Monica underestimated, it was how well I could play my own role. So I smiled. I made dinner. I let her tell me about her meetings and her burnout and her need for space. I kissed her cheek when she left for yoga, even though she hadn't gone to that studio in 3 months. I folded laundry while she showered after her networking brunches. I watched her lie to my face every day, and I watched her believe I still didn't know. It was surreal. Like being inside a play where everyone's reciting lines and I was the only one who'd read the last page of the script. But I wasn't playing for the crowd anymore. I was waiting for the cue. Because soon, and she wouldn't see it coming, the lights would come up and the show would be over. It was a Thursday when the first crack in Monica's image came from somewhere I least expected. Her own best friend, Karen. We weren't especially close, but over the years, She'd come to enough holiday dinners and backyard barbecues that I trusted her judgment. She was one of Monica's few friends who never tried to couples coach us when we disagreed. Just listened, observed. We ran into each other outside a grocery store. I almost didn't recognize her. Sunglasses, big scarf, coffee in hand. But she spotted me and called out, "Mark?" I gave her a polite nod, assuming it would be one of those short, awkward small talk exchanges. But she took one look at me, tilted her head, and said something that stopped me cold. "So, you know, right?" I didn't answer right away. I didn't have to. She saw the answer in my face. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "I've been trying to figure out when to reach out. Honestly, I didn't want to get involved. But I can't keep watching this play out like it's some soap opera." I raised an eyebrow. "How long have you known?" She hesitated, then looked away, guilty. "About 5 months. I didn't know the full story at first. Just that something was going on between her and Nathan. She told me, well, more than she probably should have." "What did she tell you?" Karen sighed. "That you two had grown apart. That you were emotionally distant. That you didn't see her anymore. And that Nathan made her feel understood." She said the last part with air quotes and an eye roll. She was testing the waters, I think. Seeing how much she could say out loud without hearing judgment. "She was crafting the story," I said quietly. "Exactly. And I didn't buy it. I know you two. I've seen you together." I told her she was rewriting history to justify what she was doing. She didn't like that. "She ever mentioned the apartment?" Karen nodded. "Said she needed a place to breathe. Said you'd never let her move out peacefully." I told her that didn't sound like you. She told me I didn't know the whole truth. I laughed bitterly. That's her favorite line. Karen reached into her bag, pulled out her phone, and opened her photo app. "Look, I didn't want to do this, but I ****ed some texts a while back, in case things got worse." She scrolled, then handed me the screen. It was a message from Monica, dated 2 months earlier. "Nathan says if I can get Mark to agree to therapy, we can use that to start separation talks. If I play it right, he'll want to work on himself and leave quietly. Still trying to find the right timing." I stared at it, stunned. It was all a script. Even therapy had been part of her soft exit strategy. I gave the phone back slowly. "Why are you telling me this now?" Karen looked genuinely regretful. "Because you're not crazy. And I hate that she's painting you like some possessive, checked-out husband. She's telling people she's the one trying to save the marriage. That you're the one who shut down." "Who's she telling?" I asked. Karen looked uncomfortable. "A few mutuals. And her coworkers. But the version she's pushing is all about how she's rediscovering herself. You're the anchor holding her back. She told one friend you refused to grow. Said you used money as control." I blinked. "She's prepping for court." Karen nodded. "That's what it looks like. I thought you should know. And if you need me to back you up, I will. Just say the word." I thanked her and we parted ways, but my mind was spinning. Monica wasn't just cheating. She was building narrative armor. She was positioning herself as the hurt one, the trapped wife, the woman who'd begged for closeness while her cold, distant husband ignored her pleas. The version where her infidelity became not betrayal, but liberation. And the scary thing? Some people were already buying it. That same weekend, I got a call from my cousin Sarah. She'd seen Monica at a mutual friend's birthday, the kind of event I would have been invited to if things were normal. Monica showed up alone. "She said you two were separating," Sarah told me. "She made it sound mutual, peaceful. Said you both realized you'd grown into different people." "Did she mention Nathan?" There was a pause. "No. Should she have?" "She's been sleeping with him for months. Probably longer." Silence. "I'm so sorry, Mark," Sarah said. That's not what she made it sound like at all." "I know," I said. "That's the point." Kept happening. Whispers came in from corners I didn't expect. A neighbor mentioned Monica had hinted I was struggling emotionally. A coworker said she heard Monica describe me as shutting down after the pandemic. One of her old friends unfollowed me on social media completely. The smear campaign was subtle, never outright lies, just reframed truths. Gently placed landmines of doubt. So I got ahead of it. I gathered the evidence, the documents, the emails, the photos, and handed them to Marcia, my lawyer. If this gets ugly, I told her, I want to be prepared. I want to make sure the truth isn't buried under spin. She didn't flinch. We'll let the facts speak for themselves. But that wasn't the end of it. A week later, I got an email from a woman I didn't know. Subject line, about Nathan. I opened it cautiously. It was from someone named Elise. She introduced herself as Nathan's ex-girlfriend. They'd dated years ago, split after a rocky 4-year relationship. I'm not trying to intrude, she wrote, but I saw Monica's name mentioned in Nathan's feed and recognized it. I remembered him talking about her years ago, way before all this. I thought you should know, this isn't the first time he's done something like this. She went on to describe in calm detail how Nathan had a history of pursuing women in relationships, sometimes even married ones. How he used emotional validation as a hook. How he framed himself as the rescuer from toxic dynamics. Then, once the women left their partners, he lost interest. She attached **TS. Messages from Nathan to another woman while he was still dating Elise. Flirty, manipulative, nearly identical to the ones I'd found between him and Monica. He had a playbook, too, and Monica had walked right into it. I thanked Elise for reaching out. She didn't want to get involved legally, but said she'd be willing to speak privately with my lawyer if needed. At that point, I didn't need to dig further. The story had already collapsed on its own. Monica's carefully curated image, the noble wife caught in a loveless marriage, tempted but misunderstood, had turned to dust under the weight of facts. Karen offered to write a formal statement. So did Sarah. So did 2 of Monica's former co-workers, who'd seen her and Nathan together months before New Year's and assumed they were a public couple already. By the time Marcia sent the formal letter of separation to Monica's attorney, we weren't just filing for divorce. We were filing with receipts, and there was no elegant exit left for her now. In court, the evidence did all the speaking. Financial records, hotel receipts, testimony from Monica's own friends. It painted a clear picture. This wasn't a fling or a mistake. It was deliberate, sustained deception. Her lawyer tried to spin it as a breakdown of communication, but even the judge seemed unconvinced. The ruling came down hard. I retained full control of shared assets. The apartment was returned to me, and Monica's access to our accounts was revoked. Nathan didn't show up. According to her attorney, he stepped back once things became public. The man she risked it all for vanished the moment it got real. She was left standing alone, trying to explain what couldn't be justified. Months later, the house was mine again. Quiet, steady, finally at peace. The kids adjusted faster than I expected. No more whispered arguments. No more half-truths. Just breath. One night, I stood in the doorway of the guest room, her old hiding place, and realized I didn't feel grief anymore. Just clarity. The marriage hadn't ended in court or even that night she mentioned partner swapping. It ended the moment she mistook betrayal for a lifestyle choice. I didn't yell. I didn't beg. I just stopped playing her game. And in doing so, I won.